Next on the news at 10, residents and first responders in Tuscaloosa remember the attacks of September 11th. We will take you to a special ceremony. Also, some Tuscaloosa roadways could soon get a much-needed makeover if the City Council approves a proposed contract. Richard?
Yeah, Tamika, coming up, the home team weather nice and cool tonight, upper 60s across the board, mid-60s towards the Coleman area. How cool it's going to get tonight? And how about your all-important weekend forecast weather straight ahead? Stick around.
And an update on the University of Alabama Huntsville professor who is accused of killing several colleagues during a faculty meeting in 2010. The News at 10 begins now.
You're watching Alabama's WVUA News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Tamika Alexander. Today marks 11 years since the deadliest attack on U.S. soil. The September 11th attacks claims the lives of thousands of Americans. But still to this day, our country still feels the military, economic, and social effects which came about after the terrorist attacks. But have Americans forgotten the impacts 11 years later? WVUA's Travis Leader takes a look inside what Americans today think of that historic day and what legacy 9/11 will have for future Americans.
Some West Alabamians say they regret the decline in patriotism in the months and now years after the September 11th attacks.
I've been guilty of it myself a couple times, but we just take for granted. It's not like it was the first couple months after 9/11, and it fell back into place.
But according to terrorism expert Adam Lankford, there are still psychological impacts directly associated with 9/11 that we see in the present time. One case was the immediate reaction to the recent Empire State shooting.
Everyone jumped to the conclusion immediately that that was a new terrorist attack, and that shows kind of how much our psyches have been affected and the fact that we really haven't gotten over it, because as soon as there's signs that things might be going wrong again, we get really scared really quickly.
Lankford says just like most major historical events, time will eventually diminish those psychological impacts.
People who are being born will only have heard about 9/11 and not experienced it. And for them, it'll just be a historical date with significance, but not personal psychological experience.
But some say it's crucial to educate younger generations about what happened 11 years ago today, because the significance of that day needs to be a teaching moment for future Americans.
If grandparents, parents don't sit down with their children and talk to them and say, hey, this happened on September 11, 2001, it's going to be all forgotten.
In Tuscaloosa, Travis Leader, WVUA News.
Today, people across the nation and across the area pause to remember 9/11. Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue held a department-wide moment of silence at 7:46 this morning to honor the lives lost 11 years ago. Firefighters and paramedics of Station 1 gathered around the flagpole and pulled all emergency vehicles out of the garage with emergency lights on to show respect. 343 firefighters and paramedics lost their lives that day. Firefighter Hollis Bond says they all share a special bond.
We have a brotherhood because we're all we have. We lean on each other. Oftentimes when the fire's burning, and oftentimes when we're not, when we're going through family problems, we lean on each other. It's a support system. It's a bond that supersedes, like I said, race, religion, and personalities. It's a bond that holds us all together.
All Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue stations took part in today's ceremony. As September 11th is remembered all across the United States, for one University of Alabama student, today hits a little closer to home. Erin Armstrong is from Long Island, New York, and is attending the University of Alabama.
Perfect.
Armstrong was in 4th grade when the towers fell. She says her mother worked in Lower Manhattan at the time, just a couple of blocks away from where the towers once stood, but she wasn't directly affected. Now at 20 years old and living in Alabama, Armstrong says reflecting on this day is a little bit different.
When you're talking about 9/11 there, it's more of a it's more that it can directly affect people, so you're aware that someone's probably almost directly affected there. Where here, when you're talking about 9/11, it's more of it affected all of us as a community.
Armstrong is currently studying journalism and political science at the University of Alabama. People of all ages remember this day 11 years ago. There is one thing many West Alabama residents remember exactly: where they were and what they were doing. WVUA spoke with local residents who look back on that day.
I was on Interstate 70 in Indiana. Yeah, I was on duty that day, working at the fire station, watching it on TV, and then we got a fire at Wild Oil Company.
I was in 5th grade.
Where in Alabama?
In Huntsville. And today's my birthday. I turned 11 in 2001.
And switching gears and turning now to our weather, let's get a first check of Alabama's home team forecast. Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott joins us now. Richard, nice day out there today.
Yeah, to make it a good Tuesday night to you. Very nice, another comfortable day in terms of temperatures. Could be a lot hotter this time of the year, and we keep that trend going. That's going to be nice for early September. Right now, 69 in the city of Tuscaloosa, and some mid-60s already across the board between observations there. Some of the cooler pockets and some of those cooler valleys already reaching those mid-60s this hour. No rain to talk about. We're rain-free. The only rain you see down towards the Gulf Coast. That will stay there for a couple of days before things change here locally. 9 o'clock in the morning, around 72, a nice start to the day. A mixture of clouds and sun, kind of like today, not a totally sunny day, but we'll see that mixture of clouds and sun all the way through lunch at 4 o'clock, 85 by 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. How about the rest of the forecast plus your weekend outlook? Weather's coming up in a bit. Stay with us.
Thanks, Richard. WVUA is covering Jefferson County, where a coal miner has died. It happened at the Shoal Creek mine, according to Jesse Lauder, with the United States Department of Labor. It happened this morning around 10:30. Lauder says the man was killed after being caught between a power center and a mine rib. Lauder says the miner was given CPR during transport from the underground, but was pronounced dead after being brought to the surface. An investigation into the cause of the accident is underway. Well, a former professor accused of a deadly shooting at the University of Alabama at Huntsville has pleaded guilty. Police say Amy Bishop killed 3 professors and wounded 3 others at a faculty meeting back in 2010. Bishop was reportedly angry over the school's refusal to grant her tenure. She pleaded guilty to 1 count of capital murder and 3 counts of attempted murder in a plea deal. Under the agreement, Bishop will spend the rest of her life in prison. Former Alabama Governor Don Siegelman is back in prison. Siegelman reported to a minimum security federal prison in southwest Louisiana around 2 o'clock today. He had previously served 9 months at the same facility before being released, while his conviction on bribery and other charges was appealed. Siegelman maintains his innocence. He is planning to ask President Barack Obama to commute the 78-month sentence. Well, if you live in the city of Tuscaloosa, your water rates may soon be on the rise. The Tuscaloosa Water and Sewer Department requested an annual water and sewer rate adjustment at tonight's City Council meeting. There will be a 4% increase for the fiscal year in utilities. The increase will become effective October 1st. The rate change is a result of increased costs in capital and current debt service needs.
Looked at all those activities and reduced them to the extent we could to keep our costs down and our rates down for our customers.
Several streets in Tuscaloosa may soon be a little smoother to travel on thanks to a recommendation before the Tuscaloosa City Council. City engineers have recommended the council award a $2 million contract for a citywide street repaving project. The streets were selected based on inspection and prioritized based on those inspections. These streets include the airport and 3 city-owned parking lots. The contract amounts is based on estimated quantities of materials installed. This is a public works contract, and bids were received and read publicly.
Well, once the funding is approved by the City Council, we've already received the bids. The ST Bond is the apparent low bidder. We will go ahead and award that contract.
Tuscaloosa City engineers say they are now waiting for the council's approval before starting work on the resurfacing project.